So what we've got here is just a square piece of paper. This is it's just some art paper I had lying about from a sketchbook, and it's not that thick, but it will take a little bit of watercolour or crayon or something else if I would choose to put some colour on it later on. But what we're going to do first is we are just going to think about patterns. And when I made this box, the patterns on it are quite random. The reason being that sometimes it's just really nice to get into what I'd describe as a creative flow state, which is when you start drawing and your brain just switches off, which is really, really healthy and really good for us to do. So at this time of year, if you're watching this in November, people are often quite tired, quite stressed. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of social stuff happening, and sometimes we all need a bit of downtime. And making something like this is a really good way of just giving yourself half an hour to chill out and relax. Now, I did go a little bit Christmas themed in places. We've got some sort of almost baubles here. Somebody suggested paper chains, tinsel, but to be honest, they're quite abstract and really they could be anything. And the lovely thing about this is there's no right or wrong way to do it. But the important thing is that you give yourself enough of a chance to just really, really relax into it. Not worry about making mistakes. Just enjoy the action of making patterns on a piece of paper. If you're worried about running out of inspiration, honestly, Google, search engines, whatever, they're all your friend. If you just put in patterns, you'll be surprised what it pulls up, and who knows what ideas are going to spark from that. So the way we lay it out, or the way I have laid it out, and again, this really is your choice. So you can see I've done kind of rectangles, squares, different shapes and sizes, and I didn't measure any of this. I kind of did it by eye, so they're all slightly different shapes, and as you can see, they're quite wonky around the edges, but I'm not sure that matters. I am not the sort of person who's going to get in there. I have got a ruler, because the one thing you do need to make sure is that your square piece of paper is actually genuinely a square. Otherwise, you're going to get into a pickle if you want to fold it up. But apart from that, it's really anything goes. So if you're the sort of person who likes measuring, you could make yourself boxes that are maybe 1 inch in size, or I don't know, 3 centimeters, something like that. But I'm just going to kind of freestyle it because that's what I like to do. So best place to start, probably a corner, and then all you need to do, this is just a chisel tip marker. You could use a fine liner pen, you could use a biro. Biros would be absolutely brilliant for that. And then I'm going to start thinking about patterns, and I've got a bit of a favourite pattern, which is spirals. So my first one is going to be some spirals. Now what I'm inevitably going to end up doing with this, because it takes quite a while to do this, is probably speeding up the video footage. So there'll probably become a point where I just stop wittering at you, and you can just watch me doing it very, very fast. But the whole point of this is that you don't do it fast. You just allow yourself to work from square to square, really relaxed, really slow, and switch off whatever's been happening in your day. You can see the shapes are not really important. It doesn't really matter what shape you do. There's all sorts of interesting ways of doing it. There's a whole movement of doodling called Zentangles, which is quite an interesting concept where you're almost guided in your doodling. But that's not something that I'm advocating. I suggest you just do your own thing. A little bit of a rainbow thing going on here. And it's funny, actually, you'll probably find once you've done a few, actually all sorts of ideas start coming to mind. And you can see I'm just drawing these out like this. What should we have on this one, eh? Let's have like a fish scale pattern or a chicken feather, something like that. It doesn't really matter. What you're going for overall is the effect of having lots of patterns all together. If you are nervous about your patterns, and too nervous maybe to draw them on in pen straight away, and you're worried about making a mistake somewhere, firstly, please don't worry. This is meant to be relaxing, not stressful. And secondly, if you want to do it with a pencil first, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Do it with a pencil. put the pen over the top, rub out the pencil underneath. But if you are rubbing out over biro, just be a little bit careful because biro smudges quite easily. So I'm going to keep drawing now. Once I've got some patterns on there, then we can talk about what we might do with it next. Okay, so there we go. We've got this really, really simple black and white pattern. And normally at this point I say, right, I'm going to leave that to dry and go off and make a cup of tea, something like that. But the lovely thing about pens is they dry really, really fast. So providing it is relatively dry, you've got two choices at this point. Either you are done, because actually there's nothing wrong with a bit of black and white funky paper, and you could use this as wrapping paper if you wanted, but you could also use it to make one of these boxes, which I will show you in a minute. If you want to continue and paint a layer of colour on top of this, this can also be quite fun, and I will show you exactly how to do that right now. Right, so we're ready to rock, and as you can see we have my small and completely filthy travel palette today, because it will do the job nicely and it fits in the shop basically. I'm going to use that to mix some colours on. And the idea, I think, with this is don't go too mad with colours. Although, having said that, if you like colour, rock on and do it. This really is entirely up to you. I am going to go for a very simple way of painting this. If you want to go really tiny and careful, you could actually paint each line, each stripe a different colour. But what looks quite funky is if you have just a limited range of colours. So I'm going to use a bit of alizarin crimson, quite festive. I'm going to use a bit of sap green, Christmas colours, what can you say, it's November. There we go, bit of green and something else. Red and green are opposite colours, so what's quite nice often is to pick another. You can either pick three that work in a triangle together, or you could pick, I'm tempted to go for an orange, but my orange is so disgusting I would have to mix it from scratch. Maybe I'll mix it from scratch. Go on. So this is just a little bit of cadmium yellow. Transparent watercolours will work better for this than really opaque ones. Right, so I've got an orange, a green, a red, and then all I'm going to do is just paint over these boxes. And I'm going to keep this really, really simple. As I say, I could very carefully do this and paint the bubbles in a different colour, or you know, or even go over the top of the paint with another pen or something like that. You could use masking fluid, or you know, but I'm doing this on fairly thin paper, so I'm not going to try and be overly ambitious here, because I've got a sneaking suspicion that if I try and involve too much paint in this, what's going to happen is the paper will become unworkable and start falling to pieces. If you're doing this on bog standard photocopying paper, you can still use watercolour, but just be really, don't get too much water involved in it. Just make a bit more of that because I haven't got nearly enough. There you go. Okay, so I'm just painting, as you can see, I'm painting random boxes. And the ink will just show through at the end, so I'm not worried about the fact I'm going over the ink, that's fine. And the lovely thing about if you make this into a box is if you're giving somebody a present for Christmas, whether it's, I don't know, homemade sweets, or maybe you've made them some jewellery, or maybe you just want to send them a nice note. It's a really environmentally friendly way of just giving people gifts. I actually made, this is some time ago when I had more time to use, I made my kids 24 of these boxes. God knows what I was thinking at the time. I must have been crazy. And they are still used each year. We put our advent calendar sweets in them. So they get a sweetie each day in the box. And they have to find the box with the right number on the top, which is quite fun. I have to say, though, I don't think I'd make 24 of these again. It was a bit of a palaver. Right, okay, so I'm going to do maybe one more. Just spreading out the colour so I get a nice range of the 3 different colours. Could even just do it as leave some white and put some colour on some of the others. That's quite nice as well. I really quite like that how it is. I mean, obviously 3 colours is what I've gone for, but there's nothing to stop you using 2 or 4 or whatever floats your boat. This is just a big watercolour brush that I'm using. It's not an expensive brush. It's literally the first one that came to hand in the studio. To be fair, there are a lot of brushes in the studio, so it could have been anything that came to hand first. Oh, let's do this one. I think the trick here is also, if you do decide to paint your boxes, try and get enough on your brush that you can paint the whole box in one go. Because if you're toing and froing, what will happen is it will dry out halfway through, and then you will be you'll end up with marks, brush marks, and really ideally you don't want that. You want to get it all as one block of colour. Have a little practice run on something. I've just messed it up myself there. Look, I'm having to go back in. There we go. Right. I'm going to get these done and then we'll talk about folding. Okie dokie. Now, obviously you could use this just as a beautiful piece of wrapping paper as it is, and I've just noticed that's a little bit wet, so I might just pat that dry before I start. But if you want to make this into a box, as I was showing you, before you start folding it, just imagine that this is the first one. In order to make a bottom to your box, get a white sheet of paper made out of the same stuff and cut yourself out another square. Can you see it's about 1 centimetre smaller on each side? So each edge is 1 centimetre in from the first one. You can see that. And that will mean that this littler version of the box will fit inside the lid, which is what you want to do. I have also cut out a little square, but you can do that at the end just as a sort of a base bit to go in your box. So the folding, goodness, let's see if I can get this right first time, shall we? That should be interesting. And try not to use any rude words while I'm doing it. I'm just going to pat off that tiny bit that's wet there. There we go. And then I'm going to fold it up. So in order to fold this, I'm going to do it really, really slowly. But if you get stuck, and this is my explanation is not good enough, there are loads and loads of very, very good tutorials online. If you just look up fold an origami box, you will find literally hundreds of exactly what I'm going to demo here. So fold it over in half into 2 triangles like that. Open it up, fold it the other way. The thinner the paper, the easier this will be, which is why I used a fairly thin paper. Fold it in to the centres. 1, 2, 3. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect, and let's face it, who is? 4. I can see I've got that one slightly wonky. Let's just pull it in a little bit. You can always practice this on a scrap sheet before you go for your proper one. And then again, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you've now folded it in twice. Now fold it out to here and fold in one corner over like that. So one of the folds you've already made, fold it into the center line. So we are just folding it in to the center line and squash it right down. There we go. That wasn't dry either, just for the record. Never mind. Let it fold out, doesn't matter. Fold it in, do it on the other side. Right into the middle, crush it down like that. Fold it out again. So that's going to be the size of your box now. Now you need to do the other side as well. So don't worry about those bits for now. That one's into the middle again. We're folding that one down. Whoops, caught the chair. Everything's boinging around. There we go. 1. Fold it into the middle, fold it in again. You've done that in both sides now, yeah? We've done it with these, we've done it with those. So now we've got all the folds we need to fold the box up. So if you hold it like that, so you imagine you've got your square, you fold it in 2 of them, right in as far as they'll go. And you just push, this is the bit I always have trouble with. Where the corner of the box will be, there should be a fold, and you can push it in like that. I'll show you again. So, corners, push it in. This is the fold that causes the most problems. Fold it over and wiggle it into place. I don't know how visible that was. I'll do it again on the other side so you can see. So, find where the corner of the box is going to be, fold it in on itself like that, and then use that to hinge that inwards into the box. And then you are there. That's the top of your little box. You can just squeeze it about a bit to make it better. Once you've made the other half of it, you might find that you want to put a little bit in the middle. So what I sometimes do is just chop a piece of paper to size. You just tuck in like that, and then it will stay in there just to make it look a bit fancier. If you've made your plain box with your plain paper, centimetre smaller on each side, you will find that you can just slot it into the top of the box. And then you've got this rather lovely bespoke gift box that is just perfect for giving somebody something rather nice at Christmas or any other time of year for that matter. And there we go.